Right on, writers, read on, readers, and welcome back to the Books by Adrian author platform. I am your host, Adrian Santiago, and this is Tuber Book Club, where we read and discuss and review books written by author tubers. I'm very, very excited to be back. We've been gone a very long time, since December, if I remember correctly. So, welcome back, everyone. I hope everyone has had a good couple months off. And I hope you've been reading, because I have. I've been reading this month's book, Dulci's Legacy by Margaret Pinard. And I got to say, I don't read YA. This is the first YA book I have ever read. I honestly can't think of another one. Yeah. So um, it took me a little while to get into it, admittedly. It took more than a couple of chapters to get into it. But ultimately, it grabbed me, especially once the visions and stuff started. I really got into it at that point. But we're going to be talking about it with the rest of my panelists today. I'm going to bring them on out here in a minute, and we'll all discuss what we thought of the first half of this book. And we have the second half in 2 weeks, and then we have the interview with Margaret Pinard 2 weeks after that. So stay tuned to this space. I wanted to mention, we discussed in the Facebook group version of Tuber Book Club the possibility of doing these episodes exclusively there, so that we can talk, in-depth spoilers and not worry too much, since it's a private group. But I realized that the chat doesn't really work with that Facebook group through StreamYard, because the Facebook group is private, and it just causes a whole bunch of problems for people to get their messages through. And so, that being kind of a challenge for a lot of people, I thought it best to just continue as we normally do and have the episodes on YouTube. They are also airing on Facebook, but it's not exclusive there as I wanted it to be. We'll figure that stuff out later, I guess. My apologies for not having an opening animation. I must admit, I completely forgot until just now when I logged in and I was getting everything ready, and I went, oh, I didn't do that. So my apologies to Margaret Pinard. I'm rusty. It's been a few months. Next week we will have one. I promise. All right, y'all. Overall, I really like this book so far. I'm really, really liking it. It's not at all what I expected, but I am like hitting some walls with some YA stuff that I'm not used to reading. So we'll talk all about that as we go through it. All right, I'm going to go ahead and bring in my co-hosts. First up, the illustrious SD Houston. Shannon, welcome. Hello. How are you?
Oh, good. How are you?
I'm good. Update the folks at home with who you are, where you're from, and what you got going on these days.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Shannon. I write under the name of SC Houston, and my YouTube channel is under the name of SC Houston as well. There, I publish content about my self-publishing journey and writing, and do lots and lots of sprints right now because I'm dedicating more time this year to my writing, which is working out really well. And I am 1/3 of the Self-Publishing Tips and Tricks podcast with Ben Pig, Running to Write, who's one of our co-hosts tonight, and Morgan Lee. I'm also one half of the AuthorTube Writing Conference with our very own author of the night, Margaret Pinard. So that's been awesome. And then I think I have similar feelings like Adrian did. We usually talk about our thoughts about the book. Did you want me to do that?
Yes, please go ahead.
So I had a hard time getting into it. It was kind of a couple rough starts until we got to the visions. I was like, oh, did it start picking up for me? And I think that's because I am a fantasy writer. I like that fantasy aspect. So I think that is just a me problem. But I am liking the story. And once that's happened, I couldn't put it down. And when I got to chapter 15, I was like, no, I'm going to stop there because I don't want to know what happens next. I'm going to stop right there. So yeah, those are my thoughts.
Very cool. Yeah. Go ahead.
I was going to say, if you move this to Facebook, I probably won't follow you because I don't get on Facebook.
There you go.
I have issues with Facebook. So,
well, ultimately, I wasn't able to pull off the whole exclusivity thing there. So I don't think we're in any danger of things changing. It's just going to stick here. As far as the Facebook thing, I just figured it would be a nice little hub for people to discuss the books further in extent of just the live videos. So all that stuff is there for you guys. If you want to go over to the Facebook group, it's linked in the description. You can sign up there to be a member of Tuber Book Club and vote on the next book and all that kind of stuff. Stuff will be happening there as well as on the community tabs of my channel. So we'll still be fine. It'll all work out.
Okay.
All right. I agree with you. I agree with you very much. It took me a little while to get started. One of the things that I clashed up against in the beginning was some of the like exposition dump kind of stuff, where I had to stop myself and be like, that's probably a YA thing, you know, like no. See, I don't know. I don't read YA. But the first chapter felt kind of like that to me, where I was just like, well, maybe I just have to get through this.
Part of the historical element, because I think she categorizes this as a YA fantasy historical or something along those lines.
I could see that.
So that I wonder if that was the part of it, because it was historical that she was bringing in more of that.
That would make sense to get everybody on the same page before moving forward. That makes sense. Let's bring in our next co-host, the ever entertaining Ben Pick.
What's up, buddy? How's it going? Doing pretty good.
It's going well. Go ahead and take the floor. Let the people who you are, where you're from, know who you are, where you're from, and what you got going on these days, and your thoughts on the book.
Certainly. I am Ben Pick. Every Monday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, I give questionable writing advice through running metaphors as running to write on my YouTube channel. I'm also, as Shannon mentioned, 1/3 of the self-publishing tips and tricks, along with her, obviously, and as well as Morgan Lee. And I'm also one of a group of hosts of the Scripting the Book. There we go. And that is hosted by primarily Nia the Vixen of Fiction, along with various other people. So Zara, Natalie Locke, like I said, a rotating cast of colorful characters and lots of entertainment. The upcoming this month's book is Artemis Fowl. There we go. We're doing Artemis Fowl. That is up in 2 weeks. So not this Sunday, but next Sunday. I forget the date, but noon, whatever that Sunday is, we'll be talking about Artemis Fowl, the book and the movie. In addition to that, this coming Saturday, I'll be hosting my 100th episode live. And yeah, I hope if you are around that I'll see you there. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm bringing on Adrian, among other people, to discuss how video games impact our writing. And I'll also be playing one of my favorite games along with the show. So it'll be a celebration of writing to write. It'll be interesting to hear your Adrian and the other people on the panel's various thoughts on video games, as well as enjoying one of my favorites. So hopefully I'm not forgetting anything. And yeah. Sorry, the book.
Cool. Yeah, your thoughts on the book.
Dulci's Legacy. I enjoyed it. I had less of a problem than I guess my other two co-hosts, Adrian and Shannon, did with the YA of the book. I feel like we were getting into the world, the island, the school, and everything in a similar way that we would with a fantasy realm, where we have the various magical elements, the various setting, the surroundings, the town, the community, whatever. I feel like we were just getting pulled into that setting. And so then when things took off, they obviously took off very, very well, but we had to get that basis of where we are, where we're located, the contemporary times, what it's like around there, and how people had cell phones, that, this, then the other. So I kind of have a very decent understanding about when this took place, about where it took place, and I've been enjoying the read for the first half, at least. That's where I also had to stop.
Yeah, we all stopped at chapter 15 for anyone following along at home. We're doing the first half today, the second half in 2 weeks. Cool. I'm glad that we're all enjoying it. I think that those first 2 chapters, at least, and we'll go chapter by chapter in a minute, but those first 2 chapters, I was waiting for the stakes. Like I didn't feel like there were any stakes yet. And then once the visions started and stuff like that's when I was like, okay, now I'm seeing where, what matters and where this is going. Before that, it being a YA book, and it was teen kids, and they were going to school, and somebody got asked out on a date, and I was sitting there going like, oh boy, like like what am I reading? And then it kicked off. Now I'm in. All right. Cool. I failed to mention at the startup, my short story, Mythic, The Death and Rebirth of Bella Erdman, is still available for 99 cents as an ebook. It's $6.99 if you want the paperback, but the ebook is cheaper, so get that. And the full-length novel, Shadow of the Spark, is officially available for pre-order. Both of those links are in the description below. The cover is being created as we speak, and I'll be doing a cover reveal as soon as that is done and ready. And I'm super duper excited to finally be on that stage. Everything else is done, and the book is ready for publishing. So, yikes! I look forward to the day where you guys are talking about how my book started off really slow. All right, let's say hello to the chat, and then we'll get into it. Yes, SD was one of the first here, along with RC. Welcome to both of you. Shannon went ahead and shared some pertinent links for Margaret's book and Margaret's website and Margaret's YouTube video channel. So if you would like to check out her stuff, all those links are right there in the chat. I believe they are also in the description, but she might have gotten one or two more than me. JC Carpenter, welcome. Hello. Good to see you. Who else is in the house today? Richard, yes. King of Chaos, indeed. YA. Bethany, hello and welcome. Ms. Vota, welcome. Yes, this is the McMurdo Riff background music. I didn't get a chance to prepare for today's episode. I'm a very bad host. I apologize. We're going to be listening to sci-fi music as we talk about a YA, fantasy historical type book. I don't know. Anybody else new? Esther Marie Andujar, welcome. Listening while she does other stuff. All right. Well, we appreciate you being here. The Dream Team. Is that what we are? The Dream Team? I'll take it. Your book doesn't start slow, Adrian, at least not to me. Oh, someone has begun reading. I'm very excited. I want more notes from you. All right, y'all. Let's get into it. Chapters. I should probably open up my Kindle so I have my notes.
Yeah, I got mine right here.
Okay. It's coming. While my Kindle starts up, who would like to go first with your thoughts on chapter 1?
Okay. And you liked how it started. You go ahead.
Fair enough. I really enjoyed the small town feel. If we get caught up in the story, it felt very Canadian. I couldn't necessarily place it because I haven't really been on the islands. I think I might have been in Prince George's, whatever. I've been on one of the small islands before, but it did feel very Canadian. And even though I couldn't specifically place it, it felt like the region to me. And I got caught up immediately in the drama of the high school. I know I'm well out of that age, but it's fun to read a book and live vicariously through certain, characters. I certainly hate the feeling of everyone knowing everyone. I didn't go through that. I moved around not that much, but like a couple of key critical points. And I went to very overcrowded schools. So at no point was I in like a 15-person classroom grade. I think mine was like 650, something up there. So there were decent numbers. But I still, because I moved around, there were people who had known each other since, first grade or younger. And I still felt like an outsider out of that group. So I was able to relate to Dulci in that scenario. And yeah, fun story. I definitely have a few not safe for work stories I know about people who grew up in, say, a 15-person classroom. So yeah, definitely can relate to the narrator and main character. So that automatically drew me in. And I mean, even if not, most people can at one point in their life feel like an outsider wherever they are. So whether it's at work and everybody knows everybody, or whether it's in high school, and for most people it hasn't been that long, but for some of us it has. And yeah, you can definitely relate there.
It has been a while since high school. It's funny how you forget what it was like to be younger and deal with these what we would consider now minuscule problems. They were so huge to us back then,
It's going.
Shannon, what are your thoughts on chapter 1?
I also kind of felt the same. Like I got a good sense of the location. I got a good sense of that small town feeling. I moved around a lot. The last place I lived in, there was just, I think we had 106 in my class, but we graduated with 98. So we were kind of small, not as small as this, but although comparable probably to the high school, but not to her junior high. But I'd have to say, I mean, it's you don't hit any dialogue until the 4% mark. Before that, it's all exposition. So that was what was really a hurdle for me to get over. I was like, okay,
Same.
what am I supposed to care about right now? Who am I supposed to attach myself to? So that was the only thing for me. When it got into the dialogue and the back and forth between Dulci, I don't know if I'm saying her name right, Dulci and Marron.
I was saying Dulcie the entire time. I know Ben was saying Dulci. I'm not sure.
I don't know.
I think it's Dulcie.
We'll have to ask Margaret, and I'll try and adapt.
And then her best friend Marron. I'm guessing it's Marron. It's
I was reading that as Marin.
Marin. Okay. So yeah,
but I could be wrong. I don't know.
It's a Indian tribe name, right? Or that belongs to an Indian tribe.
Right.
So we probably don't have any idea. She probably knows how it's supposed to be said. But yeah, when it got between them two, you could really see a difference between those two characters. Their characterizations was really well done in their dialogue, which I thought was great. So that's why I really started getting into it when the dialogue was happening.
Yeah. Yeah, same with me. I felt the same thing where I was waiting for like what character am I, attaching to. This is, a lot of exposition. I wrote a note that I found myself forgiving these early moments of telling rather than showing, which would normally really, really bother me. But since I had never read YA before, I gave it the benefit of the doubt. Like I said earlier, I thought, well, maybe this is just how YA is, it's just for kids who are starting out reading, whatever. Shannon, you're saying that's not necessarily the case. So that would be my one big note for this first chapter is, it needs more of a punch for the beginning. And I'm real big on last lines. I find like the last line of a chapter to almost be more important than the first line of your book. It's the thing that keeps the page turning to the next chapter. It keeps them from putting the book down and starting something else. Like it keeps them invested. So I find that last line of the chapter to be very, very important. And that was another thing that I ran into here where I was just like, the last line was just kind of there. It didn't make me want to keep reading. And with the slow start, I really needed that. So that's really like where I was with this first chapter, this whole idea of like, well, it's not really what I read, but I'm going to give it the benefit of the doubt and charge ahead. I don't think it was until like chapter 3 that the visions began, if I remember correctly. So my notes in chapter 2 are probably going to be pretty similar.
And my experience is only with YA fantasy, so I don't know if in like YA literature itself, if it starts off differently. I don't know. It could be. I'm trying to remember. I think I read the Goon Squad, which was YA literature, and that was, I think it had a couple paragraphs of exposition before it moved into dialogue or action. I don't remember now. But yeah, it's been many years since, and it's not something I normally read, so I don't know. One thing I did like here at the end, I know you're talking about last lines, and that's what reminded me of it because I looked at the last line. They're talking about the new boy in the class, and the way that he was brought up and discussed, and the way they're like trading like gossip basically about him did indicate to me, okay, he's important. So I did like that, where in the beginning I'm wondering, well, what's important? And at the end, I'm getting a better sense of what's important by the end of the chapter.
Nice. Any other notes on chapter 1 before we move on? All right. Chapter 2. Let's see here. So the first hint of higher stakes where my ears perked up was the mention of Jesse and whatever mental illness he's dealing with, whatever emotional state he's dealing with, the idea that he's actually threatened to hurt himself, and then a few lines later, the idea that he's threatened his sister now too at the same at this point. All of that like finally like brought some stakes into play for me, where I wasn't reading about a bunch of high school kids. All of a sudden, they were people with real problems to me. So that was a big moment, and they mention Jesse's hallucinations. They call them hallucinations. So my questions immediately went to DID, schizophrenia, even some severe cases of bipolar disorder could see things like this. So I'm just like at this point wondering what's going on with him and how that plays into everything else.
And he's older too, so I was wondering PTSD along with that as well. But
Good point. Yeah, he's probably been through some stuff a little more intense than the characters we're following. So yeah. All right. What about you guys?
Yeah, I would just like the sense of the new kid drama. So we're, like you said, we're getting a feel for where Dulci fits in within her community, within her school, where her social status is, and we are getting a really good feel for her relationship with her close friends, with her friend's brother, and we're getting a good sense of who these people are, so that when they are thrown into, later on, when they're thrown into whatever drama that unfolds, I know some of it up to chapter 15, but at that point, whatever drama unfolds, we have a good idea of how she might react to said environment, and then how she might change and grow over the course of the story. So we get a good idea of that from chapter 2. So I really liked Margaret's writing in this to get us into the character's mindset, into her reactions with her friends, and just showing us rather than telling us who she is.
The chapter started off again with 3 paragraphs of exposition. So I was like, I felt like that could have been, especially since it didn't have. So as the characters they went down to, I'm assuming, because it never really says. I remember going back and trying to read this. It starts to slip 2. So you're down at some type of port or something like that. And they're waiting for their dads to come home. And there's a bunch of backstory on that. And I'm like, okay, I didn't know what was important to the story. Again, I was wondering what's important here. Is it the dads coming home? Is it knowing the background of the town? It's one thing, I think, to release information, in a few sentences, maybe a full paragraph to release those couple of points. But I felt like 3 paragraphs to get to a couple points felt too much for me to get into the chapter. Again, I struggled getting through this chapter until I got to the dialogue. And then what you said, Ben, getting the idea of how these characters worked with each other or in each other's lives. I felt like that was better. And she puts more explanation of the background, the history in between the dialogue as she goes on. I mean, there's even like a full paragraph from one of these, but it fits in well with dialogue, explanation. Mm-hmm. This is just personal preference of mine. My mind skips a lot. So when I started with those first 3 paragraphs, I read those first 3 paragraphs 3 times because I kept skipping. I was like, oh, I read something. Wait, I got to read that again. Wait, I read something. No, I need to read it again. That, this because my mind skips a lot. I can't keep on track. So it was hard for me. But after that, it was really, really great. And I thought she had some really good lines in here. I had some nice things that I really liked. She said, a whistle blew nearby, and out of the afternoon fog, the outline of a ship started to take shape. Maybe this is just because my husband was a captain on ships in the Army, and I used to go down to the port and wait for him to come in, and I could see this in my head. I've seen this vision so many times. So I really like that. And then when she described was it the El Camino? I lost it. I didn't.
The El Camino, yeah.
Yeah, the El Camino. I lost it. But she said it was like a long tooth car or something. I was like, oh, I never thought of an El Camino like that before, but that fits. So I like those couple of descriptions that she did.
Yeah, I noted the El Camino reference as well. That I like that one as well.
Yeah.
Real quick with the chat, we've got some healthy reminders that we have books out. Richard has his book out. He's also giving props out to Ben. We got links in there. Shannon, thank you very much. That's very nice of you. What can writers learn from video games on the 100th episode that he was talking about earlier? Let's definitely check that out. I can't wait for that. That's going to be so much fun. Richard, ebooks are real books.
Yeah, I was going to say, I have no room behind me for more books, so I can basically only get ebooks.
I always want more books. Absolutely. But ebooks are real books. Don't be it. Lurking and working. Hey, Chandra. Glad you're here. Just Ava, also here. Hello. Welcome. All right. Chapter 3?
Well,
sorry. Go ahead.
Let's talk to your last point on the last chapter, which is the last line of this chapter.
Mm-hmm.
The last line is they're happy. They're getting into a car and they're happy, which almost everything I read now about when you're trying to write, people don't want to read about happy people. They want to know what's going on. What are the stakes? So it was just
Yeah.
something common.
Yeah, but at the same time, you know, everything is about like you can start off happy. I have less of a problem with that because you start off happy and you know everything's just immediately going to go to.
It's a good point, Ben, because yes, that line is lackluster for me as well as a chapter's last line. And you're right, Shannon. The suggestion that they're just doing well and everything is fine is not particularly interesting. But to Ben's point, there was an air there of like,
Especially
just
with the
this,
Desi situation.
yeah, there's just like there's like this cloud somewhere on the horizon, and like right now things are great, but you just know that cloud is coming. So it kind of works, but
Yeah.
I'm kind of in the middle of both of you on that one. Yeah. All right, chapter 3. Okay, so she starts playing the drum, which I can't pronounce the name of that drum, so I'm not going to try. But
It's an Irish drum.
Yeah, she's playing the drum with Mr. McKenna. She has her first vision at this point. My note was, "Excuse me, are we getting fantastical?" Because like all of a sudden, like I was like, now I'm in. Let me see. There's also the moment where she says, "If I'm not crazy, who is this person? Why does he have blood on his hands? Why is he so upset?" I wrote a note in there that as the reader, I'm already asking these questions. The suspense was already building. That this line actually took me out of it rather than bring me deeper in. I was already asking those questions, so I didn't necessarily need them verbalized.
That does kind of go to a YA thing, and why a lot of YA fiction, they will ask a lot of questions.
Okay, and I noticed it happening again and again in future chapters, so that checks out. And then the final line: "This could be." It looked like an older version of Finn, and I wrote, "Better final line than the last two, yet still a little awkward. The whole older version of Finn could have been worded slightly differently to deliver more of a punch." But I also know that in retrospect, having read it further, I know that she's kind of misdirecting here a little bit. Dulci thinks that this is a vision of the future still, so she's thinking of an older Finn. We don't yet know that this might be an ancestor. So, another one of those instances where I could kind of go either way on it. What about you guys? Chapter 3.
It kind of started off the same with some more exposition, and on top of that, some of the exposition was inconsistent. So I highlighted it. I had to go back because I was like, what? Wait, what? So there's one point. She's on Monday. She put in request for a music club. Now this is Monday after they already started school. They started school the week before. And then it goes from that paragraph to the next paragraph. Wednesday was time for blah, blah, blah. And then that's when she goes and meets with what she's doing. She goes somewhere and she says she was floored. It was the second day of school. And I was like, no, it's Wednesday. You just were in school on Monday and you started school last week. So it's not the second day. And then later on, with a couple paragraphs later, that it says last week she put in the note about trying to start the club. And I was like, well, that's more consistent with the beginning of the chapter. So there's some inconsistencies with that.
Later on, she mentions that she put the request for the music club on the first day of school. And I'm like, that doesn't check out. Yeah. So
there's that made me go back and forth. I was like, okay, wait a second. Wait, what day are we on? But I thought, okay, whatever. I need to get past it. And once I got past that, then I was like, okay, I'm fine. And then the visions happened, and I loved the rest of the chapter. I loved it.
I run into this issue as a writer myself, the whole idea of like the timeline and keeping it straight. And I made a conscious effort in my book to not get bogged down with like what day of the week it is or like how much time it's been. Occasionally I'll throw out little time markers to kind of give a vague sense of how long we've been following the characters, but I try not to get too specific because the last thing I want is some dude being like, hey, you said on page 3 that
hey, you're inconsistent, Adrian.
Yeah.
And so two things about that. First of all, since Richard is MIA at the moment, you can keep track of that very easily with a spreadsheet.
Don't start with me, Ben. Don't start with me, Ben.
I use a spreadsheet because my current series is on a timeline and 3 books are happening at the same time. So I use a spreadsheet and have each book with each day and lined up which action's happening on what days.
Sorry, I'm just intentionally trying to, poke Adrian with a stick.
Them's fighting words, man.
You brought Richard back in. You summoned him.
Yeah. But also, to the point.
Say his name and he shows up like Beetlejuice.
I think, if I'm remembering correctly, the first chapter, it was a week before school started. They had like an auditorium meeting or something to get everyone at the school. So it wasn't the first official day of school. So it's like kind of a getting to know where your classrooms are, sign up for the classes and whatever. So I think technically that might be closer to correct because the first day of school was on that Monday, but they had to go in like a week beforehand to do the auditorium meet.
Yeah, but on a Wednesday, it was the second day of school. So do they have no school on Tuesday?
See, this is why I don't put the dates in to avoid this conversation.
I'm pretty sure when it said that she put in the request, I think it said it was last week, and I thought, okay, well that makes sense. But
well, yeah, yeah.
It's one of those things that, like, in the editing process, like, you could really lose your mind trying to like nail down everything. It's probably one of the hardest things as an author to like get perfectly right is the timeline of events. I don't, it's hard. It happens. An unspecified time later.
Well, I know. I sent my book out to betas, and I have some missing time in there.
Yeah, it happens to all of us, man. It happens to all of us for sure. All right. Any other thoughts on chapter 3 before we move on?
Yeah, plenty actually. I really like the musical scene. The way Dulci was feeling the music, where she would change her style to have the teacher match, and then he would change his style to have her match. Like, it felt.
I dug that.
Yeah, it was really cool. It was really, really well written, and it feels like Margaret either did very in-depth research onto how to play that drum, or actually knows firsthand how it's played. Like, it felt like she
lived in Ireland for a little bit.
There you go.
But I don't know how far her music. I know she's a great singer. I don't know how far her other instrumental musical talents extend. So
I'm trying to remember. I think she might have been toured. I don't know. Let me not say anything because I don't know. But
yeah, I mean, it felt like she had firsthand experience of it. So that was wonderful. And then I was a little bit confused in terms of the size of the school. So I felt like it was weird that they went through, I want to say elementary and middle school, or at least one school prior to that, where they had such small classes, and they come to the high school and it's just this huge mess that feels a little bit disproportionate. So either they have a whole lot of smaller elementary schools that then feed into this big high school, or it was because you went from like having these tiny little classrooms, small town feel, to this one giant high school. So unless there's like one high school in the area, lots of other smaller schools, then that might make sense. But it did. Yeah. I don't know. I feel like this, at least when I was growing up, the classroom size remained at kind of a constant 30 people all the way through. Same. For the first.
The last school I went to, my high school, was actually a junior and high school put together. But it was in the middle of a cornfield. It was way out in the middle on cornfields in Indiana, and it served like several different cities and small little towns that didn't have no more than a couple thousand people in each town. And in the town where I lived, there was an elementary, and it was a very small. I didn't go to elementary there, but my brother did. So yeah, I could see it, because then all those elementary sent everybody to the junior, senior high school.
They all feed into the bigger one.
Okay, yeah. So then it's just my own experiences, and it's a feeder high school. That makes sense too.
But I'm with you, Ben. For most of my school going days, I just remember every class being 30 kids. Like that's like the magic number, I think, from third grade through high school. 30 kids per class. Yeah, it's bananas. It's a lot of kids.
It's only my high school, Richard. So I'm going to run out. So I started wondering the one thing with this chapter, and it could be totally false. It hasn't been proven true or false yet. If the music teacher is real.
Oh, I mean, I didn't have any doubt that he was real, but
yeah, I don't know. He probably is, but I kept thinking, no one else has seen him but her. She's the one that went to go talk to him. And I had that idea, Ben, when you were talking about it being small. I thought the high school was still not that big, because even though it fed into it, my high school was small. Our class, like I said, only had like 98 people graduating in it. So it was still small. So there was no way we were going to have an Irish music band. We might have a music band, but not an Irish one, that we'd have enough people. Yet the teacher talked about, I know lots of people who play this different instruments in the Irish. And I'm like, but you're not in an Irish, it's French there, and it's Canadian. It's not like an Irish settlement. At least I didn't get that feel for it.
Yeah, but you really need like 3 people to start up a club, and then you're off.
What are the chances of out of 100 people that 3 of them are going to know how to play an Irish instrument? We got 3 of us here. How many of us know how to play an Irish instrument?
That's an excellent point. I mean, maybe there's, and I get what you're saying about the Canadian setting, although there's something about like that New England area that feeds into Canada a lot, like that could have an Irish population. There's certainly, 3 Irish characters so far in the book, if we count McKenna. Is that right? I think so. Or no, Finn is Scottish.
Yeah, they're Scottish.
Yeah. Okay. Then never mind. Anyway,
Well,
I
maybe
don't
the
know.
instrument is. She said it was Irish, didn't she? Say it was an Irish instrument.
I believe so.
Maybe it's also in the Scottish setting too. I don't know.
Perhaps. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not very familiar with it, but you're right. It is an oddly like specific, you know, music group to have. Like you would think it would be more general, and then you can like dabble. But
Unless you have a huge population, so that's maybe when I was like, well, then maybe is a music teacher not real? And every situation that we've had with him so far, it's just been him and her. Although he said he knows other people he can bring in, we haven't met them yet. So I was like, yeah, when we meet these other people, they'll know it's he's real.
But it is where she had her first vision, and it was very much like
With him,
transportive. Like she experienced something where like she wasn't where she was anymore, and that, very fantastical.
Hey, Anita weighed in. She said on Cape Breton there would definitely be Irish Scottish music.
I just saw that. Yeah,
it may.
Right.
I'm not familiar enough with the area to know that. So
okay. Margaret did her homework. She researched.
Yeah. And then Adrian, you were kind of hinting at this, but I was also surprised that Dulci was so quick to jump to this is an older version of Finn, so I'm seeing the future rather than maybe I'm seeing the past or his father or his grandfather.
I think when folks experience visions or hear about visions for the first time, their gut is probably to assume it's a prophetic vision of some sort. I'm seeing something that might happen, if they think that at all. They might be thinking that they're having a dream or whatever it is, but if they're leaning towards, oh, this is a vision, they're probably assuming a vision of the future, just because like you wouldn't necessarily, I don't think I would necessarily jump to, oh, could this be from the past? That wouldn't occur to me. Well, so it gelled with me.
And that she had just met Finn, and since this person looked like Finn, she's not. I would think she's thinking of him, but it's not the him now. So who him could it be? My mind would logically go to the future.
Yeah. It looks like an older Finn. I just met this boy Finn. Yeah, absolutely. Could be rattling around in her brain. Yeah, makes sense.
And she had a name for that too, for the seer.
Seers.
She might have already had like this name running around in her head. She was primed.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it seems like it's a part of that culture to to incorporate seers into the community. So like this idea of like seeing the future, prophetic dreams and whatnot. Very cool stuff. Very interesting.
I also thought it was spicy that the sophomore is making the first move on her. I guess. So we have a whole bunch of freshmen, and it's YA.
That's funny.
Here you just have a whole bunch of freshmen coming in, and she's singled out by the new sophomore as well, too.
Yeah, but I think he sees something. I think he has visions too, and he's just not admitting to it.
We're talking about Finn here?
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah, Finn, right? Finn hit on Dulci.
Right.
Do you remember the very first time that they ran into each other? He gave her this look, and I can't remember how Margaret described it now, but it made it seem like he knew something, and he came and sought her
He
out.
makes a reference to it later on in a future chapter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it makes me think that he also sees visions, but he's trying to either ignore them or something's going on there.
Or he's getting a feeling or a vibe of some kind. Yeah, he's got something going on. You're probably right. Head on. Okay. Chapter 4 brought my first favorite line of the book so far. She shook the shiver from her spine that descended on that thought. I don't know why, but that line just jumped out at me. It's just really nice. I love that line. There was a typo I caught, which I think is the first one that I saw, where she wrote tone twice, back to back. So
I didn't catch that one.
Yeah, it says tone. Yeah. So just a small little typo. And then and then the last line of the chapter. Now she had an answer to both questions. Yes, she could go on the date, and yes, she was going crazy. And my note was the final lines are getting better. I like that one. I like that one a lot.
Oh, it's in this chapter where she said she put in the request for the music club last week.
Mm-hmm. So what do you guys think, chapter 4?
I liked it.
Yeah.
All I did was mark that inconsistency in the timeline. Oh, and I also highlight the last line.
Nice.
What did I
They're
write?
getting better.
My note was, love this ending.
Oh. How about you, Ben?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. It's difficult when you had the fantastical elements and you still have the regular normal people. So her talking to her dad about this, it struck a chord with me because she's I'm seeing the future, or at that point I'm seeing the future. I have this vision, whatever. And her dad is at first worried because she mentioned blood, and then he's like, oh well, it's probably just something normal. It's a daydream, whatever. Think nothing else of it. Just try and I guess get good night's sleep and trying to be so stressed.
As a father, that moment rang a little untrue to me. Once she mentioned something concerning like knife, blood, washing the blood off your hands, that sort of imagery, I would have probed further. As a father, I would have been, all right, let's talk about this, because that's a little weird. That's a little concerning. Otherwise, yeah.
I feel though that in this community, since it is kind of known that there are seers or they believe in this, and there's a lot in the community too, and it's well known, that maybe he would take her seriously. But then when the mom didn't take her seriously, I was like, okay, maybe not. I don't know.
Well, because they weren't Native Americans, right? It's the friend's family that is. Yeah.
Her best friend is Native American. But and don't they, I don't remember if there was mention that the parents hang out sometimes. I think the parents hang out quite a bit.
Yeah, they work together.
Yeah, and that's how they became friends. Yeah, so they're aware of that type of that community, of that type of magic or power. Maybe not real magic in their eyes, but that people do believe in that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's at least something that they would be aware of in the community, and I believe the Irish have their own version of this. Their own version of seers and that idea. So yeah, right. Oh, yeah. A.F. Stewart was explaining further that Celtic music is everywhere on Cape Breton Island.
Yeah, I've never been there, so
yeah.
This book started giving me feels of like Ben Pick's book.
Yes, I was gonna say that a little later on, but you're right. Yeah, at a certain point, I was like, "Oh, this feels a little bit familiar." Yeah,
because of the high school, or
the high school, the magic.
The high school, the kids, the magic. It was all starting to come together. Now yours, I feel, is way more leaning towards the idea of like superheroes or adventure or whatever, and this one is a little bit more like once at some point she. Or they explain that these seers back in the day might have been, especially if they were in the white community, might have been misconstrued as witches, and you had that whole drama go down. So it's interesting because it's a different like vibe. Like we're both dealing with like these teenagers with magic and powers and stuff, but it's a whole different kind of flavor at the same time. It's really interesting. Speaking of which, why is this music so creepy? Let's change this.
I thought we were trying to set a mood.
Yeah, me too. I was like, we're getting to the creepy knife blood visions now. Yeah, it's Bod Ron. Nah, I don't know how you say that.
Yeah, you're on mute, by the way, if you're trying to corral us.
Oh, I was just gonna say, any other thoughts on chapter 4?
Mm-mm.
All right, chapter 5. I felt that this chapter had really, really good pacing and was written really well. There was like one paragraph where the pacing kind of like slowed down for me and it kind of like interrupted my flow. And it's interesting because until that moment, I didn't realize how good the chapter was going because I was just enjoying it and just reading along. It's only when you kind of hit a wall that where you stumble, where you realize, oh man, it was going really well. So that's something that I'm going to take out of this. I think, a little lesson from an author to an author. The idea of like, you could be, just nailing it for pages and pages. But once you like hit a snafu in the pacing, it halts everything. and sticks out. For me, it was this paragraph where Dulcie went over to the kitchen phone on the wall, dialed her home number. Her mom answered on the fourth ring. She okayed Dulcie staying for dinner, asked what she needed. Like it was just this, like, you could have just kind of wrapped that up in a sentence and moved on. We didn't have to like do the play by play. And again, that's something that I struggle with in my own writing, this idea of like, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened, when you could just like, flower it up a little bit. So all that to say that other than that paragraph, I really enjoyed this chapter a lot. It flowed really great. I was moving through it really quickly. There was another great line in this one where it says, a world of defeated dreams in his expression, and the question of whether she'd understand in his. I wrote it in my note, damn, what a great line. So like, yeah, she's like really hitting her stride by this chapter. And I'm in, like, by now I'm invested, How about you guys?
I kind of agree with the line by line play that you were talking about. That's kind of what tripped me up in some of the earlier chapters, was that line by line play. But it did get fewer and fewer places like that as the book went on. I love the chapter. The only thing was a characterization that was given, which I'm trying to think that perhaps it's probably okay, but she's talking about how she's talking to Joan, who is Marin's mom, and she wants to talk to her because not only because Jesse has the illness, but their family also has a history of having these visions and stuff. So she wants to go talk to her. And the paragraph ends with that neither she nor Marone saw things, but tales had come down occasionally shared with the girls. And while Marin had been interested, and Dulcie had tried not to listen. And I thought Marin had been interested, but everything after that suggested that Marin had no interest in the visions and she thought they were quackery. And so I was a little bit confused by that as it went on. So that was just one confusing moment.
That checks out. How about you, Ben?
I appreciated how Dulcie was perfectly encapsulated in this chapter where she is crushing on a new boy at school, and then all of a sudden she's thinking about how they might get married. And at this point, they haven't even really gone on a date or interacted much. And so this is both, I feel like that feels like very, very high school in the moment. So I like I said, it got me right into Dulcie's head and who she is as a character. Also, I appreciated the real food in the story. So the tomato sauce and spiced rice. I've never had that before, but it sounds delicious. So
sounds pretty good.
It's definitely fun. Yeah. I always appreciate when authors, writers, whatever, allow us to taste their novels.
You should put that on a t-shirt.
I've never heard it worded like that before.
Definitely should put that on a t-shirt. I like it when authors let us taste their novels.
Books by Adrian. Taste my novels.
Actually, that would go along with Margaret's brand because her brand is Taste Life Twice.
There you go. Margaret, free marketing advice from Tuber Book Club.
You get to taste your novel. I forgot to say about this.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah. I did want to add in, I forgot I wanted to add in that I did appreciate how Dulcie did have an adult figure to go to ask about the vision that she saw. There you go. Yep, I just said that. So I liked that she had an adult figure who could help her, that believed her, because a lot of YA, a bad trope for me are bad parents. So I like that she had someone she go to. It's not necessarily a parent, but it is an adult figure. Usually adult figures are shown as stupid, lazy, or dumb in YA novels. And so I did it. I like that. And to get that other viewpoint on what possibly Dulcie was seeing.
I dug that too. Margaret, you've been lurking.
She's been lurking.
You have revealed thyself.
Yeah. And Ben wants to know, is it Dulci or Dulci?
Yeah. How do you pronounce her name? I thought for sure that I heard her say Dulcie before, but I could be Dulci.
I just got off my producing commitment. Oh, okay. So she hasn't been lurking. She just got here.
Mm-hmm. A likely story. Right on.
Did you hear that taste the novel comment, as in Taste Life Twice Publishing? Yeah, she probably did. Dulcie, like Tulsi tea. So Dulcie. Okay.
Yeah, so Dulcie the person. Okay.
Dulcie?
So what about her best friend? Is it, we probably don't even have the right two pronunciations. Maron? How do you say that one?
Yeah, I was thinking Marin for that one.
Marin sounds easier to say in my head, so I was like, oh, I'll go with that one. Second one, Maron.
Maron.
We're waiting, Margaret, for specifics.
Like Eva Peron. I don't even know if I'm saying that one right.
Well, phonetically, yeah. See, I would read that as Eva Perrin, so I'm still at Marin. You're not helping me, Margaret.
I don't know who that is. Probably she's expecting that we know who that person is.
I don't know who that is.
I don't know that person.
Oh man. Anyway, it's so funny just waiting for like that sounds suspiciously French. Well, why suspiciously? Like in Spanish, like from Evita the musical. Well, if it's in Spanish, then it's Perón. So then you would be closer, Shannon.
Okay.
Marron.
Marron. Okay.
If I'm understanding what Margaret is saying, then
Great.
That's not, yeah. Because if I was reading that name in Spanish, I would read Eva Perón. All right, there you go. Yeah, nailed it. See, I'm the best. All right.
It's not R. It's Marron.
I think it's only one. Yeah, it's only 1 hour. You don't have to roll it.
Oh, okay.
Try for that.
All right. Anything else on chapter 4?
That was 5, I thought.
That was 5? Yes,
no.
That's what I meant. 5.
Jack?
Yeah, that was 5.
Yes, Richard. Yes, it is. Okay. Chapter 5. 6. Chapter 6.
6.
Get with it, Adrian. All right. There's the moment where they're going on the date and Finn asks her where she would like to go eat. And it says Dulci was a little taken aback.
Yeah.
I thought that was his job. Now I have to think of somewhere good. And my note says rolls eyes.
I have thought that though in my dating life.
It definitely put me in the, like, I finally understand where the ladies are coming from, because here's the difference in what's going on here. He's asking, where would you like to go eat? Because I want you to have a good time. I want to take you to wherever you want to go, because this date is about you. And in her head, she's going, he's asking me where to go. I have to pick somewhere we're both going to like. I have to pick something that we're both going to be excited about. And this is very difficult because I don't know this kid. And I'm over here reading like, that's not what he asked you. He said, where do you want to go? Don't look for the hidden meanings in between. There are none.
But again, that makes sense for high school and YA
it
drama.
Does. So. It absolutely makes sense. It's not a critique. It's not a critique at all.
Yeah.
It absolutely
it was perfect for the
rings
scene.
true. Yeah, it rings perfect. Absolutely true. It puts me into the shoes of another person. I get it. I roll my eyes because as the guy, I'm sitting there going, that's not what he asked you. That's not what he asked you. Hey, Ty Williams, welcome. We're talking about Dulci's Legacy by Margaret Pinard. We are on chapter 6. Co-hosts, take it away. Chapter 6.
You go ahead, Ben.
There was a lot of door slamming. I guess I didn't notice it earlier, but at that point I started recording it, and there's a lot of door slamming in this house. So
is it? Oh yeah, yeah, that's right.
I know that Dulci has a really great relationship with her dad. She's really excited for him to come home, and she seems to have a great relationship with her mom. But there's tiny little details that make it seem like there are cracks in those relationships, and definitely slamming doors is one of them.
Slamming doors. Her mom also seems to be mostly absent. She's always out during the day, and nobody really knows what supposedly. Don't believe everything you read, Ben.
She's able to find Joan more often than her own mom.
Yeah.
She's going through.
Yeah, but Joan works at the library, and she's over at her friend's house or whatever. So I don't know. How you guys?
Joan is not suspicious.
I was going to say, as a latchkey kid, this doesn't seem off to me.
Yeah, I mean, I always knew where my folks were. They were always, at work or at church or wherever. But yeah, it was never a mystery where they were. But yeah, I was a latchkey kid. I just came home, came in and went as I pleased.
I came home, ate dinner for my family.
Yeah.
Made sure my brothers were taken care of. I was 9 years old making dinner every day.
Yeah,
Yep.
I'd ride my bike throughout the entire like neighborhood. I'd be gone for hours, like just out in the world without a cell phone.
Yeah, I like this chapter. I didn't have any notes. I didn't notice the door slamming, so I guess that one didn't ring in my ear. But yeah, I like this chapter. So I don't know why I kept thinking of Margaret in this one. Uh-oh. Am I frozen?
Oh, no. No, you're not
No.
frozen. I think Adrian, or he's very good at keeping still.
It's smiling for that long. Okay, there he's moving.
I'm back. What did I miss? My Wi-Fi, you guys. I'm working on it. I'm trying to switch to another provider. My last note for this chapter was another great line that stuck out to me. With mountains rising on the far shore like sleeping forms turned away from the sun. I highlighted that and wrote nice.
It stood
Nice.
add on a happy note again, though. So I was like, I don't know. I'm like,
Was it really happy, or was it excited for what's coming with the date and everything? I mean, I feel like there still is some.
Well, she was eating, so she was eating, laughing, and teased him right back. Yeah.
I appreciate it more in hindsight after the second date. There's a nice little juxtaposition between the two experiences when you get to that point. But right now, yeah, you're probably right, Shannon. I was probably feeling the same thing where I was just like, well, everything's kind of nice right now. Like,
but
let's
I feel
get
like
back to the blood.
Mind, right in the back of my mind, I'm like, there's supposed to be something going on. There's these visions. Well, it's a vision at this point, and I'm like, what's going to happen with that? What's the next step with that? I was interested in that.
Yeah.
But she is a kid. She is a teenager. She's going on a date, so there's going to be that.
Her first date ever.
Yes.
Yeah. Big deal. So something interesting here. I don't have another note until chapter 10. So it looks like I was just chilling through the next few chapters here. Any last thoughts on chapter 6 before we move on?
This might be a note for 7, but since we're talking about the first date, I just have, it was a really fun first date to read about, and she's lucky that he was a seer, that he has a seer in the family. Otherwise, that would have gotten awkward real fast.
Yeah, but that did work in her favor later, which I was confused about. But I think it might go back to, I think he might be having visions, and now he's feeling put on the spot with her talking more about it, or he maybe wants to ignore it or something. I don't know. I'm thinking about what's happening in the future.
That's an interesting thought, because my gut would assume that he would jump at the chance to talk about it if he was having visions. But on the other hand, if his visions are just hypothetically far worse than what she's having, maybe scarier for him, and he doesn't want to talk about it. I don't know. I until you brought it up, Shannon.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, we're still moving. Oh.
My mom Maggie says the internet's giving everyone problems today.
Yeah. I don't know. Okay, you're back.
I hate it. I hate my Wi-Fi. It's the worst. When did you lose me? What was I saying?
I didn't think about it until you brought it up, Shannon. When
the idea that he might be experiencing something similar, that it didn't occur to me, but there are seemingly a couple little hints or nuggets like that. The idea that he has seers in his family, but it doesn't necessarily help her later on down the road. It's an interesting thing to bring up. I hadn't thought of that. All right. Chapter 7. Who's got notes?
I didn't put anything.
Me neither. I thought this was a great chapter.
Mm-hmm.
You either, Ben?
Same.
And she does more questioning, which I guess maybe I didn't distract you that time, Adrian.
No, not really. I thought it flowed really well with everything.
I thought so too. I thought it was really well done. And I was really into the story at this point. I don't think I stopped. At this point, I read all the way through to chapter 15.
Yeah, I think I did the same from here on. Yeah, which also explains the lesson notes. Yeah.
Yes, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I have like one note per chapter for going here on out.
Yeah, I think the biggest compliment as far as this book club is concerned, the biggest compliment that we can give an author is, I have no notes for this chapter. It was freaking sweet. I just read right through it. Nice. Chapter 8. I don't have any notes. I don't have
2
notes
miles.
till 10.
So she walked 2 miles in 28 minutes, which feels like a fast walk, and that's perfectly fine. You know, anyone's capable of doing it, but that fast of a walk would typically leave somebody sweaty unless it's like really cold outside, or, you know, I question how sweaty she will be when she arrives at the library.
This is your area, Mr. Running to Right.
Hey, I mean, I have no problems walking around anywhere and trying to sweaty, but I just figured.
Well, when I was in the military, I had hurt my knees at one point, and so I had, instead of running 2 miles, I had to walk 2.5 miles, and I always did it in 28.5 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, see, I have walked a mile to work, and it has taken me at, I think, 30, but I was like walking. I wasn't jogging. I wasn't running. It's just a straight walk. So, yeah.
It could have been partial jog.
Yeah, she must have been jogging for most of it.
So part of
Yeah,
it.
I mean, I with 28-minute 2 mile. It's just it would leave, like, if she doesn't incorporate running in there, that means she would be sweaty whenever she gets to where she's going.
Oh yeah.
So
I get sweaty places just walking. I don't even have to. I don't have to run.
I like that we get the next vision right in this one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Is this only the second one, or is this the third one?
I'm trying to remember.
I think this is only the second one, isn't it?
I think it's only the second one.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, I think it's the second one, because it's when she sees the Indian and he's holding up the knife. Or no, the Indian's hands were empty, but in front of him stood a bigger man. And the Scot made a move to swipe at the Indian. He must have a knife. What's going on?
And yes, the internet is giving us all problems today. Problems we don't want.
This is when she wonders if this is the past, I think, for the first time, because before she was kind of set that it was on the future, that she was seeing something in the future. And she says that she's going to tell Joan because of, as of yet, though, she still has not told her friend, which I think through chapter 15, she still has not told her friend, her best friend, what's going on.
That makes sense, though, because like you said, her best friend kind of doesn't believe in the seer stuff. She kind of thinks her mom is a little bit out there with her beliefs. So it makes sense if she would talk to her friend's mom and not her friend itself.
Yeah. I found it interesting that she started, delving into the idea of it being from the past rather than a vision of the future. It was something I hadn't even considered until the character did. So I like the development in that. I read a note later on, I think, that I really like that she's trying to solve a mystery through her visions. It's just, it's a really interesting plot device.
I like that too. And did you feel like a moment of like, oh no, she's never going to figure it out when she talks to Jesse for the first time, and he's been saying that he says he's been having these visions for years. But I'm like, wait, are we not going to know what the visions mean? I
wasn't afraid that she wouldn't find out. I became afraid that she would, that's her future, that we're looking into a possible future for her, is this very, manic and somewhat tortured kind of existence. I don't want her to end up like Jesse, Yeah,
that was like my second thought, yeah. And of course, my third thought is, well, it's a book. It's going to end, so we're going to know.
Yeah, eventually we will find out.
Yeah.
Ben, how about you, man? Any thoughts on chapter 8?
No, I gave my only thoughts on there. I like I said, I was moving along in this. I was caught up in the story, and I was enjoying the read.
Same. All right, chapter 9. Again, no notes from me. Anyone else?
I'm looking through. I don't see anything yet.
I know I have notes in chapter 10, so we're about to get back to some notes. But so far, man, she's been on a roll for like 4 chapters.
Yeah. So there were a couple points before where she would be asking, why am I getting these visions? Why is this, that, and the other thing happening to me? I wasn't really enjoying. Well, I don't know. I didn't like those parts, but in this chapter, chapter 9, when she actually says, then why was she seeing these visions? She's asking a series of questions that I have, and I don't necessarily like it when narrators come out and do this. I understand that it's a YA trope, so it makes sense. But here, it didn't take away from the story in this particular moment because it was good to acknowledge her thought process. She's trying to come at it. I have this problem. Let me logically solve. Let me logic my way through it. How I'm going to do it. So I'm perfectly okay with it here. And I still want to keep this note in because there were some parts before where she asked the questions, but then she just never went any further than it. And here she starts doing that follow up. The follow up. The
she's putting the work in. Yeah.
Brain processing. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
So I liked it here.
What do you guys think about that? Her thought, because right, she believes possibly the reason why she's having these visions is because she's the link between the two families.
Right. Did she already come to that conclusion by this point? I know that she mentions that again later on. But
she says, then why was she seeing this family? Why not someone in Joan's family?
Gotcha. Yeah, she's at least from the beginning, she's been questioning what her role is in this. Is she supposed to help? Is she supposed to stop something from happening? Is she supposed to, like, what's she supposed to do here?
Yeah. I mean, she did say that with Finn's family coming back to town might reignited the curse.
Yeah, I that's another one of those things that it didn't occur to me until she said it. I'm very interested to know where her sort of intuition is coming from, because her conclusions, while we may not know yet if they are factual or not, they're very interesting, very convincing. That idea, again, something that hadn't occurred to me. As soon as she said it, I was like, yeah, that makes sense. So And it raises questions as to like the rules, right, of this kind of more fantastical element to the story, this sort of like almost magic system kind of scenario that we have here. Like, what are the rules? Because that's interesting. I also and I think it's one of my notes in the following chapter, but I started wondering if these 3 kids that we're reading about now, Jesse, Finn, and her, are, I don't want to say reincarnations, but like where like the curse has been reignited within them in the way that like in a Legend of Zelda game.
I was going to say, now I know why you wore Zelda hat.
Yeah, Zelda, Link, and Ganon are connected that way, and every couple thousand years or whatever, they just do it all over again. And I just wonder if it was just time for these 3 souls to cross paths again.
So I had the same similar thought, and I was like, okay, well, she's having visions, Jesse's having visions. That just supports, and I was thinking that just supports Finn is probably also having visions. But we don't know.
Yes.
We don't know all the rules yet.
Yes, because if they are all connected in that way, then he could be having them as well. That, yes, you're absolutely, man, that's smart. That's smart. All right. Sorry.
You good to go?
Okay. Let's take a look here. Chapter 10. I highlighted the line, and saw in the moonlight that there was a dark stain on the snow spreading from underneath the girl's middle. And my note was, now we're getting juicy. And then later on, she could be spirited away like that. How would she ever be safe in her own time? So I that's where I wrote the note of loving the mystery and the challenge of solving it through visions. This is a great premise. That's where like I feel like the soul of the book really finally like grabbed me, and I understood what it was that we were doing, And
I like that she did bring up about what could she be taken from her own time, because when she was interacting with the Indian girl, I was like, wait, she's talking to this Indian girl? What if she gets stuck there? What if, what happens? Yeah. So I already had that thought. And so that she thought it, I was like, okay, we're on the same wavelength here then.
Yeah. For sure. Ben, chapter 10.
I got nothing. I read right through it.
Nice.
Very nice. I also liked her and Maron's interaction. more characterization speaking to their friendship. I kind of want more of Meron, and now I'm on board. Like I want Meron to know what's going on, so at least she can be there to be in Dulci's corner.
Yeah, I do find it very interesting that we're this far into the book and she hasn't told her best friend about this. And like I get it. Her original trepidation was, oh, she'll think I'm crazy, or she'll be dismissive of it, or she'll worry about what's going on with Jesse. I get all of those things, especially with Jesse having like threatened her and whatnot. But at the same time, I'm like, your best friend is the person that you come to with stuff like this. The person that you would count on not thinking that you're Looney Tunes just because you're saying something weird. Like your best friend is going to hear you out. So I'm very anxious for that to finally happen. I need those two to get on the same page, and but now I'm worrying that she's been holding back for so long that when she finally does, it's not going to go very well.
Yeah, I wonder about that too.
Yeah.
Especially since Jesse's only getting worse.
Yeah.
Is he though? Because I didn't really get a good baseline. Like he seemed like he's been kind of
Yeah, they were
the
talking
same
about
in terms of the visions.
or something like that.
Well, he reads to me as kind of manic, he's always like
Yeah.
moving. He's always like hugging himself or like clutching his legs, or,
And they said the meds weren't working, so they're going to try something else.
Yeah.
But to me, he's getting worse.
Or at the very least, he appears to be getting worse to everyone else. Yeah.
Right, because he was taken out of the mental hospital.
Margaret, what do those eyes mean?
Or something. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe something we said.
So cryptic. Chapter 11. The conversation with Kukui. I just highlighted her, and my exclamation was, "It's her!" Her being able to like actually converse with this spirit. That's pretty wild stuff.
Yeah,
we're getting into some really great stuff here.
And all she's saying is run.
Yeah, and no other notes for this chapter. I just thought that this was a great chapter.
What do you guys think is possibly happening? So we've got this big Scotsman, we've got the Indian girl, and we've got what is another Indian, right? Older
the
Indian brother.
The brother. Yeah.
So right now it's being presented through Dulci's eyes, in which she believes the Scotsman killed the little girl. But from the little girl, I kind of felt this before from some of the language she said in the first vision, but I don't remember what it was now. And then talking to the girl in this one, that whatever happened for her to die, I think was an accident. I don't even know if it was the Scotsman or if it may have been her brother.
Mm-hmm. That's what I was thinking too. I think that I don't think she was a girl. Like I thought she was a teenager and she was in love with the Scotsman. Like that was the kind of vibe that I was getting.
That's what I got to. Because there is a line where Dulci thinks that the girl's her age, but she's looking at her from behind.
Interesting.
And so then it might be the brother who doesn't approve of the relationship, so he attacks the Scotsman. There's a fight, and then the girl gets caught in the crossfire.
But she's only like 10 or something in this vision. She was younger than what I thought she was. So it says, Dulci looked at.
So that's really, and you guys are kind of blowing my mind right now, because the way that I read the whole thing was, I was thinking the Scotsman kills the girl, the brother then swears vengeance, right? And the curse exists because the three of them are entangled in like this murder like circle. So and because it's unfinished, and until it's finished it like comes back. But if that were the case, if I was correct in that read, then that would connect Jesse and Meron with Finn, and it would make Dulci an outsider looking in. I was supported in this by the idea that she's speaking to Kukui. Um, in other words, she doesn't represent her in this new version of the story. She's speaking to her, so the one that represents her might be her best friend Marin, who has a brother. But what reason could Finn have to harm Maron? And furthermore, is it an accident, as you guys suggest, or am I completely wrong and you guys are right? Because you guys are reading it, I think, very differently. So I don't know.
So in the
might be
previous
the
chapter,
same-
it said the girl couldn't have been more than 10 years old. That was in the previous chapter. So
Cool.
she did say in the first vision, the girl was Dulci's age, she thought, but it was from behind, and now 10 years old. So that's where I was like, okay, so there's no relationship between her and the Scotsman. You wouldn't think that would be the case with her being 10 years old. So then I was trying to come up with other things, but I haven't come up with anything quite yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, but in terms of repeating, now it seems like Jesse's on a path to take out Finn, and so Dulci might be the one to sort of step in and stop it.
And if Finn represents the guilty party, right? If his ancestor is the one who killed the girl, then the unfinished business is the brother has to avenge her death by killing the Scotsman, which would jive with Jesse wanting to go after Finn.
But or it could be that the brother accidentally killed her when he was trying to swipe the. Because remember, I think he was one holding the blade. No, it was the Scotsman. I'm trying to remember.
The Scotsman had the blood on his hand.
We saw the blade.
Right, the blade. Right. So it could be that the brother was trying to get the Scotsman and accidentally got his sister. There's a possibility that happened. Or
maybe there's a struggle. Maybe the sister was trying to, stand in the way and
she's
save the
way.
Scotsman.
She's wearing the Scotsman's blade. So she has a relationship with the Scotsman, whatever that is. It might be more of a father-daughter relationship.
Sure.
And it could be that maybe there is another actor in this scene that we haven't seen yet, and that's the connection to Dulci. Because then I go back to the name of the book, Dulci's Legacy. So whether she just happened to fall into this, or does she actually have some type of tie to it?
Yeah, Margaret's enjoying all of her.
She's loving it. She's loving it. The evil author in the corner.
I mean, but have you guys thought about the title of the book with what's going on? Yeah.
One of my earlier notes that for some reason I glossed over and didn't mention was that the title Dulci's Legacy, that word legacy is kind of a big promise. And when that first chapter, those first two chapters were very, closed in on Dulci and high school and boys and all that, I didn't see where the legacy was coming from. I'm like, that's a big, that's a heavy word. So now that we're getting this far into it, the visions, the idea of ancestry and family curses and all this kind of stuff, like I'm starting to feel that heavy, that legacy promised. But what are you referring to, Shannon, when you say have we thought about the title?
Well, about how Dulci fits into the whole picture. That maybe it's not just happenstance that she happened to be there, be the connection between the two, but that what I was just mentioning with having possibly a third person in the scene that she's been seeing, but hasn't seen that person yet, who is her ancestor or connection. I don't know.
So maybe her ancestry is responsible for placing the curse.
It could be, yeah.
Which would make her role in this ending the curse.
Or we could get into like scientific stuff. And since the little girl saw her in the past, she's a ghost, but the little girl knows that she's in her future. And so now Dulci's legacy started back when the little girl before she died.
So there's just a time loop right here?
Yes.
Wibbly wobbly, tiny whiny stuff.
I go down like all different paths of what could be happening and what could be going on.
Margaret, I knew your book was good, but I'm starting to realize it's really good. Good conversation. Shall we move on? Chapter 12? Chapter 12. Okay. This is where there's a moment where Dulcie was shaking her head, but then thought of the Indian man that the Scot had been threatening with his knife. Was that? I'm gonna guess this is Tatir or Tateri. I'm not sure, but Tatir. My note there was, so is this about reincarnation? Are they the same people from the past? Like, is this their souls like getting a do-over, a second opportunity to end this conflict? At this point in my reading, I'm thinking reincarnation. But in this point in our discussion, it seems that might be too easy, too specific. I feel like what she's doing is a little more layered. I'm not sure. What do you guys think about this chapter?
I liked it. And it's funny you said that you found one error, grammar error, the word tone twice back and forth. I didn't catch that, but this is chapter where I caught a grammar error, but it was just the one. So.
I gotta say, like, I think that was the only typo that I singled out. So her editing is certainly on point.
Oh, yeah. So,
Margaret, I'm gonna need the name of your proofreader.
I really did like that that she was able to talk with Jesse. I really like that.
Oh no, we don't mean to confuse you, Ty.
We're confusing ourselves.
We're confusing ourselves. We're just exploring all possible avenues. we don't know.
We're past the wall and see.
All of us have only read up to chapter 15, so we will we'll all find out all the answers in the next episode 2 weeks from now. Cool. All right, I'm sorry. Chapter 12. Who was saying what?
I was done. I think Ben's talking now. Oh I'm done, Ben.
Okay. I did like the line, at least I'm not crazy alone anymore. And counterpoint, she still might be crazy, but it's true that she's not alone. So she's found a couple of other kindred people who have shared her own experiences. And I would say just in general life advice, it's kind of a bad indicator when the only person who completely agrees with you spends some time in a mental hospital. That's kind of...
In real life, I absolutely agree with you. In fiction, it's the opposite for me, right? In fiction, I don't buy for a second that she's crazy, and I don't buy for a second that Jesse is crazy. I don't think either one of them are crazy or belong in a mental institute or anything like that.
We also have insider information, and we know the story.
Yeah,
and
like we're outsiders looking in. We've got the God's eye view. Yes, absolutely. So that being what it is, sure.
Can I say? I didn't know if you knew that was Savion. I was going to say it earlier, but do you remember Savion? Savion?
No, I don't remember Savion.
Cookie King.
So
there's 3 different names to remember.
So he's Ty Williams now, but he used to be Savion, and he was AKA.
I see. Okay, now I'm understanding what everybody is trying to get me to understand. Okay. For some reason, I was like, wait, what?
Well, I didn't know if you actually knew who Savion was before. So.
No, I did, but I didn't realize that. I thought he was talking about a character in the book, and I'm like, wait a minute. Like, I was very confused.
Give
me 1 second. I got my kid here.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Well, I thought that last line that you point out, I like that being a last line for the chapter.
Yeah, and I more so than anything else, I think that's one of the more hopeful endings to the chapter than a lot of the other recent ones.
It's hopeful, but it's also got this layer of threat because there's more coming. Especially knowing the level that Jesse got to, and then going back to what Adrian said, I had the same thought. Well, if he's been going this long with these visions, she's going to get there eventually.
Yeah.
Maybe. So with Jesse, I thought that it's because he was alone, because nobody else understood what he was going through. That's why he kind of internalized it and wasn't able to really cope or understand what's going on. But because from Dulci's point of view, there's somebody else who has experienced the same thing. Like the fact that he exists, the fact that he has these visions, that sort of raises her up and would probably keep her from suffering in the same way. Although then again, she also kind of has the public collapsing moments at school and here and there. So I don't honestly know where that will go.
Yeah, I was, before this point in the story, I was very much worried that he is the cautionary tale of what she could end up as. But by this point, I'm leaning more towards your thinking, Ben, where he didn't have anybody to lean on. He didn't have anybody to believe that what he was experiencing was real and not just in his head. She does. So she has the the possibility of a much healthier version of this for herself if she's able to exercise it and harness it and learn to use it properly and whatnot. She could turn out just fine.
Well, don't get me wrong here, because we are only halfway through, and the way the story is going, we are going for a major.
It's interesting because I definitely feel like we're gonna end in a much darker place than we began with this book. The whole like first 2 chapters being very YA, high school, everything is fine kind of stuff. Like I may have been duped here. I may have fallen exactly into the trap that Margaret wanted me to fall into, because at this point I'm like, oh, this is not going to end well. Like something bad is going to happen.
So to say to your point, Ben Pick, I don't agree. He does have somebody. Jesse has his mom. His mom believes him. So I thought that same thing, and I discarded it because he does have his mom. So I think it may be possibly what this tie is to his ancestor that is driving him to resolve this, and he has that drive hitting him.
He does have his mom, and she does believe him, but she doesn't seem to know how to help.
Right.
She hasn't been able to really help Dulci either. So
that doesn't really speak to then if Dulci's going to get to his level or not, because they both have someone that believe them. I think it's that he's got this drive to fix it. Whatever it is, which to him means killing Finn.
Yeah, there's that.
Fish on a hook. Fish on a hook.
Fish on a hook.
There's 3 of them, so it's not just me. She's got us all. Right where she wants us. I broke Adrian for a minute. Yeah, you did it. There's like smoke coming out of my ears. I'm like, what are we talking about? Okay. Cool. Is that chapter 12? Chapter 13. Let's see here. She dreamed of a dance with all 3 groups, British, Mi'kmaq, and is it Akkadian? Assadian? I really need to learn how to pronounce these words. My note wrote, if I haven't mentioned it yet, this book has won me over in a big way. Seeing the 3 groups kind of coming together here was just like, it's all the puzzle pieces that Margaret was putting in the chat are starting to like link up, Beautiful. It's my only note for this chapter. I thought this chapter was great.
Yeah, I have no notes for 13 again. I was just
nice.
I like that she almost told her best friend.
Almost. Not good enough, Dulci.
I mean, counterpoint, if I ever had visions, I wouldn't tell anyone. Like, I would do my best to just sit there and not react whatsoever. So, for all you know, I'm seeing all kinds of crazy stuff going on, and you would never know.
I'd write about it.
Yeah, well, that's true.
Yeah, I put it in my stories. I talk about it to my coworkers. Our hotel is very haunted. I've seen a lot of stuff in there. I've got stories if you want to hear some stories later, Ben.
Yeah.
All right. 14. I highlighted the final line, left to ponder a night of mixed signals and undisguised disdain as she drifted off to sleep. I wrote, this felt so relatable. Dating sucks.
I thought it was odd for Dulci to use the phrase kids her age or kids my age.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it feels like something like a parent would say about,
I feel like I've said that as a kid. That sounds like something I would say. Kids my age. Dulci is, in my opinion, very mature for her age. And that might be, that might be alluding to her sort of outsidedness,
right. Also, I like that she has these predictions for how the date's going to go. And basically there's option 1 where she has a fun date.
Yeah.
And then she's like, she actually includes a rating of not likely. And then option 2 is a bad date with decent food and atmosphere. And then her outlook is, oh yeah, that's entirely possible. And then I'm reading this and I'm like, well, I know neither of these are going to happen. So
it's secret option C.
Everything just goes badly and she doesn't even have a good date and the food doesn't get there. And
I mean, it wasn't option 3, but it was mostly option 2 without him leaving her.
Right.
They just sat in awkward silence and ate and
Awkward silence. He got very dismissive. He just kind of
Yeah.
like would look away from her
still
and
dying of
stuff.
embarrassment.
Yeah.
Been there. Dating's rough.
I don't know. How did you guys feel about, like, you know, Finn? Finn seemed to be, you know, okay when she mentioned the first vision. But did you hope that he was going to still be on board when she talked about the rest of them? Or did you like that he was dismissive of it?
I thought it was very realistic that he was dismissive of it. I thought
Assuming that
that
he doesn't have visions of his own.
assuming that he doesn't have visions of his own. I also felt that it was real. Shannon, pardon my French. He was a real asshole about it, and I feel like that's very realistic, especially for a teenage boy, to put his foot in his mouth and not even realize that he has. You know, she mentions later that he like kind of smiles at the end of the day. He doesn't kiss her, but he smiles like he had a good time, and the confusion of that for her, like I'm like, yeah, he doesn't know that he really messed that up, or he knows and doesn't care, and both of those options kind of suck. If he is having visions and he reacted that way, then he is thrice the asshole. And and it worries me because again, my read is that his avatar, so to speak, is going to be the killer that kills the young girl.
I did think it was a realistic reaction, so that's not where my mind went. Just to clarify, I don't want anyone to think that's what I thought. I just had wished it was a different reaction.
Oh yeah.
Oh, perfectly.
Yeah.
Is she telling us something, or is she just laughing?
The interview with her is going to be so fun. I'm very excited. Makes sense. I've been an outlier already today in terms of classroom sizes and feeder high schools, so this may just be another of my own experiences.
Yeah, Savion was talking about the using the phrase "kids my age."
Oh, yeah. I think I used it too when I was when I was younger because I didn't feel I was as young as everybody else.
I was usually the oldest kid in my class because my birthday's in October and the cutoff is August, I think, for the school year. So I was always a year behind everybody. Yeah, I feel like I use that expression probably quite often. Kids my age.
Yeah. I went through a natural disaster and lived outside for a while. So after that, everything seemed not important.
I hear that.
Fair enough.
And I was like, why do kids my age talk about this stuff? This stuff is stupid. You should be more worried about this.
Yeah,
I remember thinking that as a kid.
Yeah, one of your friends is like, do you like this skirt on me? He's like, who cares? Do you know like what's going on out there? Who cares about your skirt?
Yeah.
Fair enough. Then I'm just the immature one. I'm the one you're describing as kids my age.
Yeah, you're the kids. You're the kids that are our age. But that just means that you were normal and we.
Yes, you were normal. We were not.
Yeah, you
got to live a normal childhood.
I kept trying to say something and nothing would come. All right.
I lost all my notes.
Chapter 15, I had no notes on. I thought 15 was another great one. Ends really strong.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to keep reading. I didn't because of this, but I really wanted to just keep reading. And again, this being my first YA book ever, I feel like that's high praise. Because certainly in the beginning, I was worried that I wasn't going to enjoy it because it was YA and it it's not for me, but it can be for me because I'm into it. I'm digging it.
I felt that way about most books last year we read. I was like, oh, I'm not going to enjoy this book. But I enjoyed all of them. But I was like, oh, I'm not going to enjoy this book.
It's interesting to be on your side of it. Yeah, because usually when the book gets chosen, I was like, all right, this is going to be cool. I'm going to like this. This is going to be fun. So, yeah. I should have known better. Margaret's a great writer. I should have known I was going to enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
Guys, any final thoughts on chapter 15?
It was hard to stop at the end of the chapter because
I had to actually go back to our this scheduled live, right, and say, did it say chapter 15 or 16?
You wanted the excuse to go that one further. Yeah. No, it's good, man. It's going strong. It's moving at a good pace. You know, I went 4, 5, 6 chapters without any notes whatsoever. I mean, I can't think of a higher compliment. That's good stuff. Right on. Well, in 2 weeks from today, same bat time, same bat channel, we're going to be doing 16 through, what is it, 30?
The rest of the book.
The rest of the book.
Yeah.
We're going to do the rest of the book, which I'm very, very excited about. She mentioned in the chat that there's no sequel. So we're getting a one and done here. So lovely to hear your thoughts. We'll go back to first part of this to rewatch after you're done. You didn't miss anything. Don't go back there. Stay up here.
As much, at least I didn't.
Yeah, it was. It was no. It was a slow start for Shannon and I for those first 2 chapters, but I think that by chapter 3 we were getting invested, and I mean at a certain point we were just in and moving at a clip. So Margaret, great work. I'm very excited to finish this. We're going to talk about it in 2 weeks, and at the end of that episode, at the end of that episode, 2 weeks from today, we'll bring our nominees for the next month, and everybody will get to vote. And then on the interview episode, we'll announce what our next book is. Which, no, my book won't be out yet, but it will be out by the time the next one comes around. So maybe we'll do my book for the next one after that. All right, everybody, say goodbye. Ben, you're up first.
All right, Ben Pick, Running to Write. If you're around this Saturday at noon Eastern Time, I would love for you to come on the channel. You can see me debate with Adrian, a couple of other people, Richard in the channel, about how video games have inspired our writing, how they've influenced us, and I'm going to be playing my favorite one along with it. It's my 100th episode. It is my 100th episode, and I hope to see you there. Everything else we can wait 2 weeks to talk about.
Right on. Links in the description below. Shannon, say goodbye to the folks.
Right. Thank you, everybody, for coming. And again, we'll get to finish up the rest of this book in 2 weeks. I don't have anything coming out on my channel anytime soon, but I'm doing daily sprints, except for on the weekends, normally working on my Camp Nano prep for April. So if you're doing that, you're welcome to come join. And yeah.
Also, sorry, can I just say one more thing?
Of course.
Because I actually checked my calendar. So not this Sunday, but 2 Sundays from now, I'll be with Nia the Vixen of Fiction and the rest of the crowd, and we will be talking about Artemis Fowl on scripting the book. So both the book and the movie. So that will be the Sunday just before the next episode here on Adrian's channel.
Cool.
I don't need to be big, but can I do a plug real quick?
Of course.
Yeah. So no, I don't need to be big. Margaret Pinard has Fabled Passages. Is a collection of short stories, and if you're reading Dulci's Legacy and you're reading that, you can definitely see the voice has gotten stronger, and it's a beautiful collection. So I suggest that catching that.
Wonderful.
That was a 5-star read. I did enjoy Fabled Passages as well.
5-star read. All right, I got to pick that one up. I don't have it yet. I'm going to check it out. Sounds good. All right, for my piece, Shadow of the Spark is available for pre-order. Link in the description below. If you want to read an arc of Shadow of the Spark, there's a link in my link tree, which you can get to. If it's not linked in the description below, you can get to it through my Instagram, which is linked everywhere. So just head over there and click on my link tree. There is a form that you can fill out, and you will be on the list of arc readers. That is specifically for folks who are going to write me a review on release day. So if you want to do that, go sign up. It's going to be awesome. In the meantime, The Death and Rebirth of Bella Erdman. Pick it up. It has not just the short story prologue lead in to my novel, but it also has the first 3 chapters as a nice little sample. Each one of those chapters introduces one of our 3 main characters and establishes the mystery of the main plot of the book. So go check it out. And that's about it. appearances this week. I have Amy Rosenfeld's channel on Friday. I have Ben. Yours is on Saturday.
You got it.
Saturday. I'm with Ben on
Dude.
Saturday. Sunday, I'm on RC Scott's channel. And it's going to be like that for a while because I got a book coming out. So I'll be ubiquitous. Look it up. All right, y'all. I don't have an animation for the outro, so we're just going to wave and say goodbye. Thank you to everybody for coming out. Margaret, thank you for stopping by. We really appreciate all of that. Your book is fire. Your book is fire. All right, y'all. Congrats on the 100th episode, Ben. I'll see you for that on Saturday. Ryan on Writers, we are out.